This is what a $1,000 eBay seller looks like. This is what a $10,000 eBay seller looks like. And this is what a $100,000 eBay seller looks like. But how do you get from here to here to here? What are the $10,000 sellers doing that the $1,000 sellers aren't? And how did the $100,000 sellers beat the plateau of being a $10,000 per year seller? Well, I call it the bridge, a series of requirements that allowed sellers to go from their first sales into side hustles, and the side hustles that have turned into $100,000, well, they've been able to unlock what many are unable to do, and they've unlocked the second bridge, and now they use eBay to fund their lifestyle. But how do I know all of this? Well, I've been selling on eBay for the last 5 years, and I've carried out all of the requirements to unlock both bridges, and now I've done over $100,000 a year for the last 3 years. So in this video today, I want to give you exactly what you need to know to get through each stage of the eBay journey and turn eBay into whatever you want it to be. So the first requirement is you're treating it like a business. It's all about your mindset when you're first starting out. If you believe that it's possible to become a side hustle seller and then ultimately a full-time seller, you're going to be well on your way to be able to get there. So when I first started, I knew that this thing could be what it turned into today. I knew that when I sold an item on Facebook Marketplace and I turned a Funko Pop from $10 into $40, that was purely proof of concept. If I did that once, what's stopping me from doing it 100, 1,000, 10,000 times over? It was the proof of concept that allowed me to adopt that mindset of this is a business and I can make it so. From there, consistencies start to come into it. You're obviously still pretty clueless, but you're understanding that you're going into a bit of an adoptive mindset of learning and doing. So those that can actually say, look, I'm ready to commit to this and I'm ready to start learning the process of how to do it, you're going to get to that side hustle status pretty damn quickly. Obviously, you're going to go out and want to source a lot of things, but goal setting is going to be the first thing you want to do. I think anybody that takes the business seriously is going to go out to the point of going, right, what do I actually want to achieve from this? I've spoken about it so many times in my videos, but I've had this whiteboard sitting up on the room here, and I've always tracked where I want to get to. What is my next goal? It doesn't need to be a big outlandish yearly goal. You can strip it right back to what are you doing in the next 30 days? What's this next month looking like? Somebody that does $1,000 per year selling on eBay, they're not thinking like that. If they find something lying around the house, they throw it up onto eBay. Obviously, happy days if it goes on to sell. But somebody that wants to create a side hustle, they need to create some form of structure. And having goals and then tracking towards those goals are super important. We created Flipped It. That's a financial tracking tool that eBay sellers at beginner levels and intermediate and advanced can utilize to track their business numbers. These are all things that side hustlers are going to consider over the person that's just trying to sell 1 or 2 items lying around the house. Now, I actually believe that this is the thing that makes or breaks an eBay seller at the side hustle level. You see, when you're first starting out and you're just selling 1 or 2 items lying around the house, you aren't actually going out and making a purchase on an item to try and sell. That's exactly what you're doing though as a side hustler. You're venturing out for the very first time to places like garage sales, flea markets, whatever the case may be. Facebook Marketplace has been doing really well for me and others at the side hustle level. It's this experimentation that can often lead to bad buys when we're in our side hustle days, and that's the thing that can often end us. We spend so much money on stock, and half of it is actually poor stock, that we fill up our house with a bunch of junk that is never going to sell, and that leads us to quit and not sell on eBay anymore. We blame eBay, we blame everything else, but we don't realize that we're our own culprits. We've got an addiction to shopping and making purchases, and we have no understanding about what we're actually looking for out there when it comes to sourcing product. Now, the evolution of that we will speak about when we talk about the side hustler converting themselves into a $100,000 seller, but that's the big aspect of being a side hustler. You're going out and you're buying your items for the very first time, and that can be a really daunting process. But if you have success, this is actually a really great way to stay in the process of being a side hustle seller, going out to your local thrift stores every single week to try and uncover some stock. And if you get some generalized knowledge over time about what categories might be selling better for you, this is where the profitability can come into it, and you quickly do become a $10,000 per year seller. So the sourcing side of it, if you do it well, it makes you stay through as a seller long term. If you do it poorly, you can end the game pretty quickly. This is why this sort of 10K mark is either a make or a break moment for you, and it's the ones that can persist, generally persist because they buy better stock in the long run. Now, the next thing is you're going to be starting to list more quality over quantity when it comes to sourcing items. The funnest thing that we all love to do is we go out and we buy, and a lot of these $1,000 sellers that are just purely treating it like a shopping addiction aren't going to go to the effort of actually listing up their products to get it to go on to sell. If they do find themselves being able to list up their products, it's usually pretty poor. It's bad titles, it's bad photos, it's no true understanding of the algorithm on how you get impressions and page views and ultimately clicks on your listings. And you have no understanding about how to price up your item correctly as well. The advancement, the unlock is that you're now starting to source better quality items, and you're really digging into the research about how to go about creating a good title. How do you date great photos? What is the price point that actually gets an item to go on to sell? These are all the things that you start to learn over the course of the journey of being a side hustler, and it really elevates you quite quickly from a $1,000 seller to a $10,000 seller. The next requirement is routines and systems. If you're taking this thing seriously, your weeks are going to start to look different than if you're doing this just purely as a one-off. You're going to actually have hours in your week attributed to wanting to build your eBay business. It might not be much because you're only doing 10,000 a year, but you know you're going to go out and source some items, you're going to list up some items, and you're going to be doing some form of shipping throughout your week. So this is the real evolution of taking it seriously. You need to start to put some systems in place, and not always are they going to be the most efficient. That's always the advancement as things go on. Over time, you're going to get better, but that time element of just going, right, I'm actually in a business now with eBay, I'm going to need to devote more time towards it. A lot of people, unfortunately, aren't in the position to be able to expand their eBay business just due to limitations with their personal life. So when you do get into eBay, you do need to realize that there is going to be 10, 15, 20 hours worth of work commitment to be able to get to this next level that you want to get to. But those that are side hustlers, they've got the time and they're using it wisely. You're obviously going to make a few sales as a side hustle seller, and the best ones are going to be reinvesting that into purchasing more items, where the one-off seller is probably just going to go, hey, great, I've made myself a free coffee. So really taking it seriously in the sense of your financials, using things like Flipit or an Excel spreadsheet to track where your numbers actually are, to know exactly how much profit you're making, and then have the, the common sense to say, well, I want this thing to grow, I'm going to reinvest my money back into eBay. A lot of people will ask me, Matt, when do I actually pull money out for myself? And I always say, try and hold it all within your business and keep it within the eBay game as long as you can. That way you're going to be able to grow it faster. You're going to get to a position where you can actually pay yourself out a whole lot more. So the best eBay seller side hustlers are going to be doing this with some form of a second job to allow them to reinvest their money and almost treat it as though it's just a growing pool of cash that they simply have no access to. So if you could be working a 9-to-5 job, or at least even a part-time job where you're only contributing 20 to 25 hours a week in that area, that's kind of funding your lifestyle and paying all of your bills. From there, you can spend all of your additional time to learn and grow with the eBay side hustle and keep the cash in it. That's the secret. Beginner sellers and sellers that just want the money straight away, they're not going to want to do that. They're going to want to dip into it, maybe out of necessity, maybe out of the fun of simply just making some money for themselves. But the true side hustlers that are really growing this thing, they attribute and want to get to the $100,000 eBay seller status. They're going to keep the cash in the system and keep it moving. And to be honest, these requirements are all actually very easy to achieve. We see a lot of people that go on to be side hustle eBay sellers, and they have a really fun time keeping it just at that level. We've actually got a 12-week challenge that we've kicked off, and applications are now open for you to be able to attack your first $3,000 in revenue and 100 sales transactions, putting you well on the way to being a side hustle eBay seller. So if you're not quite yet at that point, if you're more sitting around than not yet started or just the $1,000 eBay seller, definitely click the link in the description and check out that program, because we're underway with applications now. Now, our next set of requirements are a little bit more trickier. They're a little bit more time devoted to be able to get to the promised land of being a $100,000 eBay seller. This isn't quite full-time income, which a lot of people think that it is. You're only making about 30 to 40% worth of a profit margin typically in this eBay game. And look, $30,000 to $40,000 worth of income isn't really going to be sustainable to make it your actual gig. So a lot of the times people are achieving $100,000 eBay statuses while also doing a 9-to-5 job, or even 20 to 25 hours worth of part-time work in their other world of doing work. So it's tough because there's a really, really big time commitment that's put towards eBay to get it to 100,000, but it's also not really yet reliable to be your full-time income. So I often tell people it's actually better just to cross off everything you need for bridge number one and just be that $1,000 a month, $10,000 a year type eBay seller. It's a whole lot more stressful, or stress less, I should say, than being a full-time eBay seller or getting closer to that with $100,000 per year in sales. I'm in that position right now. I'm doing about $110,000 to $120,000 worth of revenue. I'm making that $30,000 to $40,000 a year in profit on my eBay business. It's not enough. I've got plenty of other areas of focus that I'm working on, but I've been able to unlock the next couple of requirements that are going to be really important for you guys to be able to make that jump. I know a lot of you right now are sitting in that $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year worth of revenue, and you want to get it up to double. You want to get it over 100,000. Now, the first thing that I think you should be really focusing on is, again, a new set of mindset adoption. You really want to be thinking like this, like not only are you a business, which you've now always been as a side hustler, but you want to be thinking about your business in a sense of efficiencies. You really want to be working more smarter than harder. And for a very long time, I worked really, really hard on my business and I was not working smart. It actually took place in year 4 and 5 for me. I really just flicked the switch and got so much more efficient with what I was doing, and it's made myself so much less stressed because I'm doing things the right way. What am I actually doing? Well, firstly, I'm focusing on a higher average sale price. The side hustler in me was just listing up as much volume as I possibly could. I was being really consistent, but I wasn't listing up the best quality items only. I was listing up everything, and it was causing me to work way too many hours. I had a really poor mindset about what my game plan was, what my goals were, and I had to really refocus things. So first thing for me was, right, let's just go ahead and list up a dollar value per day. So I swapped my mindset when I turned into a really efficient $100,000 a year seller. I turned it into a $500 per day active listing value. That's what I was going to put in. It wasn't going to be me listing up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wasn't going to be quantity. It was going to be dollar value. So I wanted to list them up in as few amount of listings as possible, and the eBay algorithm did not hurt me for it. So my average sale price over the years, as I've got better with eBay, my average sale price has also grown. It's now sitting at this month, I think it's about $56 for 2025. And now when I was in my part-time days and I wasn't making as much money, it was sitting more down around $25 to $35. So in this evolution of growth from going side hustle to 100K per year, ask yourself right now, what is my average sale price? Life will get so much easier if you focus on the growth of your ASP. And that's the biggest thing. Mindset is everything. How can you get smarter and work less? The next requirement is crucial, guys. This is all about building connections. Those that are sitting as side hustlers that are growing into a full-time seller, they're starting to establish connections. They're actually thinking, I need to go out to my flea market, my garage sale, wherever I am, and I need to speak to the person, not the product. The minute you can speak to the seller and obtain their information, build some rapport, build a relationship with them, you've got to treat this like a business because you are a business. And part of that is building out your network. Now, you'll see me when I'm at my local flea market, I'm out there all the time thinking, how many connections can I get at this thing? And I'm often coming away with 1 or 2 connections each and every week. That builds up a bit of a Refidex, and I've got someone to lean on when I'm actually after some stock. Because the thing is, when you're doing $100,000 a year in sales, you need to be listing out well over $100,000 worth of stock. And that means it's going to be harder if you're leaning on places like thrift stores, flea markets, and garage sales, and that's all you've got to rely on. So don't make it tough for yourself. Build the connections as you go, and over time, life is just going to get a whole lot easier. I am blown away when I speak to sellers that are at that side hustle or very much beginning stages of their eBay journey, and they'll often think that once that listing goes onto eBay, that's it. It's just set to sell, and that's often not the case. It's the full-time sellers, the $100,000 sellers that are putting as much time into store maintenance and nurturing what they've currently got existing as active listings versus going out and finding the new stuff and listing up their new items. This is something that I've placed a heavy amount of focus on over the last 12 to 24 months. I've basically spent all my my time, or at least half my time I should say, 50% sourcing and listing new, 50% of my time though just simply managing my store. What does managing your store mean? Well, I'm always doing the end and sell similar approach that we always talk about in our videos. I'm always adapting a different price point to fit what the new market price of the item is. If there's anything that needs to be changed in the way of titles or photos or whatever the case, I'm making those amendments as well. So I'm actually just analyzing what's taking place, what's my click-through rate looking like, how is my sales conversion rate going, and then I'm also attending to my watches. Are my watches actually going through and getting sold, or am I building up 20, 30, 40, 50 watches on a particular item? You should never have that many listings with that many amount of watches, because they should have sold by now. Clearly, you're not doing something right to get that item to go on to sell, and the last thing you want to be doing is housing onto stock sitting in the back for months and years on end. I went through a very long period of time where I never did stock take, and this is a part of the evolution of being a 100K seller. You need to be store maintenance within your store on the computer, but store maintenance in checking your stock and making sure it is still stock that you want to be selling on eBay, because the best stuff, the cream of the crop, is always the stock that is actually going to turn over. Chances are in your side hustle days, you put a lot of dodgy stock in, and you've got to go back and routinely maintain that to keep the store ticking over. Now the next one, I've actually dabbled with a little bit over the years as I've been a 100K seller for the last 3 years. I actually had Courtney, who was a part-time employee that worked for me, and this topic is all about delegation. You can't build a business all by yourself. As much as you want to think you can, you're always going to get there much quicker if you've got a great team around you. Now, I had Courtney for 20 hours. She focused very heavily on my listing and my shipping, and it was my responsibility to make YouTube videos about what we were doing to document and further market the business, but also obviously obtain new stock in my sourcing journeys. So I'd bring it back in, Courtney would list it all up. Now the whole thought around that was that we were going to be able to surpass 100 sales by a long way, because we had 2 people now working on the task. It doesn't actually need to come in the form of somebody sitting in your 5x3 garage doing your shipping and your listing. You can look at a cheaper option, which is virtual assistants. Now, I've never gone ahead and done the VA approach, but I know a lot of people out there that are scaling their businesses are starting to use these programs and leaning on things like virtual assistants to surpass them well past the $100,000 per year. And then that puts you in a bracket where it's funding your lifestyle. It's a full-time gig. You've got the assistance of somebody helping you. Therefore, your hours aren't pulled away and you're able to work a standard 40-hour week and call eBay your full-time thing. So it's that evolution of going from side hustle to full-time where you're going to need to start to delegate, lean on some helping hands. You're not going to be able to do it any other way. Financial discipline is absolutely crucial when you get to that level. You've got a heavy amount of taxes that you're going to have to start to pay. You've got GST requirements that you're going to have to set yourself up for. You've probably by this point created yourself some sort of software like Xero, where you're tracking your financial management with an accountant and you're paying your taxes on a quarterly basis. You might even be evolving your business status from a sole trader here in Australia anyway, to a company status, Pty Ltd. This is improving your taxation situation. So having a real understanding around the business side of things from a numbers perspective, a financial perspective, is going to allow you to keep growing and keep making it the thing that funds your lifestyle. If you don't have this awareness and you're not sure where your finances are, you're going to continue to source and buy wholesale big lot buys that are never going to be actually able to turn around profit because you're wasting it in many areas because you're just simply unaware of how your business should really work in its most efficient sense. So adopting that, learning that, speaking to an accountant, booking in for these sorts of calls and learning and upskilling yourself in financial literacy is going to be incredibly crucial to keep this thing ticking where you need it to be. I think the most important thing along the journey though is to constantly enjoy it, guys. I've, in every level and every stage that I've been able to surpass, I've always loved the process of building up my eBay business to what it is today. I worked really, really hard and got a whole lot more efficient, but kept my numbers up nice and high because I was able to learn and enjoy the process as I went along. So wherever you are along the journey, make sure you're enjoying it, and hopefully we can see you in the 100K club in the not too distant future.